two islands, one destiny, until leadership, vision, and a few early choices sent Jamaica and Singapore into opposite worlds. In this video, we are going to look at the hidden story behind one of the most surprising development divergences of the 20th century. We'll walk through Jamaica's early push for education, infrastructure, and industrialization, then uncover how political rivalry, crime, and economic shocks slowly eroded its momentum. Side by side, we'll examine Singapore's unwavering focus on stability, meritocracy, and long-term planning. Through this lens, we unpack the decisions that shaped each nation and the powerful insights Jamaica can still use to build a stronger, more prosperous future. For most people, the idea that Jamaica and Singapore once stood at almost the same starting line sounds unbelievable. Today, one is seen as a disciplined, hyper-efficient global powerhouse, while the other wrestles with deep structural challenges. But history shows that these two islands, though worlds apart in their modern reputation, began with remarkably similar conditions: limited natural resources, colonial legacies, culturally diverse populations, and a massive responsibility of nation-building. This video aims to unravel how two nations that faced parallel beginnings unfolded into such different realities. And more importantly, what Jamaica's journey teaches us about leadership, development, and the price countries pay when early opportunities slip away. Before we explore this story, remember to subscribe if you enjoy deep dives that break down global development in simple, clear, and engaging ways. It helps the channel reach more people who care about understanding how nations grow, why some succeed, and why others struggle. Now, let's step into an alternate Jamaica, not one of beaches, music festivals, and vibrant tourism, but a Jamaica reimagined through the lens of unrealized potential. Picture waking up in Kingston in the year 2024, but instead of the familiar landscape, the city feels more like a Caribbean Singapore. The skyline is dotted with modern towers rising over clean, well-designed streets. High-speed trains connect Kingston to Montego Bay, Ocho Rios, and Negril in under an hour. Efficient public transport moves thousands of people daily with precision. Innovation hubs and technology parks line the harbor, where Jamaican engineers work on renewable energy projects, software development, and advanced manufacturing. Global companies have regional headquarters in Kingston because the country is known for political stability, low corruption, and world-class infrastructure. It's a kind of Jamaica where people don't migrate in search of better options. Instead, skilled professionals relocate there to take advantage of a thriving Caribbean economy. This vision might seem distant, but it wasn't impossible. In fact, Jamaica had the intellectual leadership, the economic potential, and the early momentum to head in this direction. To understand where the divergence began, we must go back to the island's formative years, because a country's future is shaped most profoundly in the decades immediately after independence, when foundational choices determine its long-term trajectory. This takes us to Norman Manley, a man whose influence on Jamaica's early political landscape still echoes today. He was more than a politician. He was an intellectual force with a deep commitment to national development. A Rhodes Scholar, a decorated World War I veteran, and a gifted lawyer, Manley possessed both the academic vision and the moral conviction to imagine a modern Caribbean nation rooted in equity and opportunity. He believed wholeheartedly that Jamaica's strength would never lie in minerals, plantations, or tourism. It would lie in the intellectual development of its people. For Manley, education was not just a social good, it was an economic strategy. During his leadership, Manley dedicated significant political capital to expanding access to secondary education, strengthening teacher training, and supporting what would later evolve into the University of the West Indies. He wanted Jamaica to cultivate a generation of engineers, scientists, administrators, and thinkers who could lead the island into modernity. In his view, a country that underinvested in its people was planning its own stagnation. Beyond education, Manley emphasized infrastructure, recognizing that development cannot occur without the physical systems that support trade, industry, and investment. Throughout the 1950s and early 60s, Jamaica expanded roads, ports, and its industrial base. There were serious attempts to diversify the economy beyond agriculture. Efforts to build factories, encourage local manufacturing, and support industrial processing were already underway. At the time, Jamaica was considered one of the most promising economies in the Western Hemisphere. But promise is fragile, and its success depends on consistency. As Jamaica approached independence, politics became increasingly polarized. Ideological battles between Manly's People's National Party and Alexander Bustamante's Jamaica Labour Party began shaping national strategy more than long-term development plans. Instead of continuity, Jamaica experienced political swing after political swing. Every shift in leadership meant a shift in development priorities. Where a country like Singapore moved with a single, steady vision, Jamaica was pulled between competing ideologies, with each new administration reluctant to build upon its predecessor's foundation. This instability was the first major turning point. Investors began seeing Jamaica as a country where policies changed frequently, which made long-term investment riskier. Big projects were often delayed, abandoned, or redesigned depending on who won the next election. Infrastructure efforts slowed, industrialization lost momentum, and political violence, fueled by rivalry between party supporters, started seeping into communities. Then came the global crises of the 1970s. Oil shocks hit import-dependent countries like Jamaica especially hard. International markets turned volatile. Bauxite prices, a major source of Jamaican revenue, tumbled. The government accumulated debt trying to stabilize the economy. As unemployment rose, crime followed. Many of Jamaica's brightest minds, concerned about instability, began leaving for opportunities abroad, a migration wave that continues to shape the island today. Meanwhile, Singapore, which shared many of Jamaica's early vulnerabilities, was quietly doing something radically different. Singapore in the 1960s was not a global success story. It was a struggling island with high unemployment, serious ethnic tensions, a reputation for corruption, and virtually no natural resources. Yet its leadership, under the uncompromising determination of Lee Kuan Yew, executed a long-term national vision with remarkable discipline. Stability was prioritized above all else. Corruption was confronted aggressively, with systems put in place to ensure a clean civil service. Education became a national obsession, particularly in science, engineering, and technical training. Infrastructure development was swift and strategic, and policies were crafted not for political popularity, but for long-term national positioning. Singapore made itself attractive to foreign investors through reliability, efficiency, and predictability. While Jamaica struggled with political turbulence, Singapore demonstrated that stability itself is a resource, one that attracts capital, talent, and innovation. By the 1980s, Singapore had firmly established itself as a rising power in Asia. Its economy shifted from low-skill manufacturing to high-value industries, finance, and technology. Public housing and social services improved dramatically. Crime dropped due to firm governance. Meritocracy became part of the national identity, and the world began studying Singapore as a blueprint for development. During this same period, Jamaica's path was marked by economic contraction, a spike in violence, political division, and continued brain drain. Although there were notable achievements in culture, sports, and tourism, the island's economic growth lagged significantly behind its potential. At this point, it's worth pausing to ask a difficult but important question. What would Jamaica look like today if its early development plans had unfolded without disruption? If political rivalry hadn't overshadowed national strategy? If crime hadn't surged? If education had remained a top priority? To explore this, we step into a reimagined Jamaica, one shaped by decades of steady, disciplined development. In this scenario, Kingston becomes more than a cultural capital. It becomes a regional center for finance, logistics, and innovation. The country's natural position in the Caribbean makes it a perfect gateway between the Americas, attracting multinational companies and global investors. Manufacturing thrives, not only producing raw bauxite, but transforming it into aluminum products, electronics casings, and high-value components. The Jamaican dollar is stable. The economy is diversified. Young people feel confident building their lives at home instead of moving abroad. Montego Bay and Ocho Rios evolved beyond tourism, becoming vibrant economic zones with research facilities, universities, and corporate parks. These cities attract students and professionals from around the world, creating a multicultural environment that rivals major global hubs. This alternate Jamaica is not imagined through fantasy. It emerges simply from consistent governance, strong institutions, low corruption, long-term planning, and a relentless investment in education. These are the same ingredients that propelled Singapore from a struggling island into one of the most admired nations on earth. But history took a different turn. And Jamaica's challenges today, high crime rates, limited economic diversification, sluggish GDP growth, and intense brain drain, are reflections of decades of instability, policy reversals, and underinvestment in human capital. Still, the story is far from over. And that leads us into the second half of this exploration, because Jamaica's future does not have to mirror its past. The second part of this story begins with a powerful truth. Jamaica is not condemned to the challenges it faces today. Nations have reinvented themselves before. Countries like Singapore, South Korea, Finland, Rwanda, and even Vietnam demonstrate that radical transformation is possible when leadership, institutions, and citizens commit to long-term change. Jamaica possesses the foundation of talent, culture, geographic advantage, and global recognition needed to engineer a remarkable turnaround, if it embraces certain lessons. The first lesson is the central role of education in national development. Around the world, education has proven to be the single most reliable predictor of sustained economic growth. Countries that transform their school systems transform their economies. South Korea went from one of the poorest nations in the 1950s to a global technological leader by investing massively in education, technical training, and research. Finland transformed itself through rigorous teacher training and a child-centered approach that prioritized equality. Singapore's education system, ranked among the best in the world, became the engine of its economic rise. If Jamaica aims to close the gap with global competitors, education must become a national obsession again. Not just more schools, but better schools, better training for teachers, modernized curricula focused on science, technology, engineering, digital literacy, and problem solving. Education is not simply a public service. It is a strategic investment. The second lesson is political stability. Countries that grow steadily over decades do so because their development strategies do not disappear every election cycle. Singapore's growth model spanned multiple generations of leadership. China's economic policies remain consistent across several administrations. Even Germany and Japan have benefited from long-term industrial strategies that survive political change. Jamaica needs a mode of governance in which national development plans are protected from partisan swings. Stability attracts investors. Stability encourages long-term projects. Stability builds confidence among citizens. Without it, progress remains painfully slow. The third lesson revolves around crime, not just as a policing issue, but as a development issue. Jamaica's high crime rate is one of the biggest barriers to investment, community growth, and quality of life. But crime does not emerge in a vacuum. It is often the result of unemployment, inequality, limited opportunities, inadequate housing, and weak social support systems. Countries that significantly reduce crime did so through a combination of law enforcement and social development programs. Colombia reformed its cities through urban renewal and increased community involvement. New York's famous crime drop came from not only policing reforms, but economic revitalization. For Jamaica to break its cycle of violence, it must invest in both justice and opportunity, creating jobs, improving neighborhoods, and building stronger social networks that steer young people away from gang activity. The fourth lesson concerns economic diversification. Tourism, while an essential industry, cannot sustainably carry an entire nation. Tourism is sensitive to global recessions, natural disasters, political instability, and even public health events like pandemics. Countries that rely heavily on tourism often experience sudden downturns when external conditions shift. Jamaica has the potential to expand into manufacturing, technology, logistics, agriculture, renewable energy, and the creative industries. Its geographic location places it at the heart of major shipping routes. Its vibrant culture can power global creative exports beyond music. With the right incentives, Jamaica could attract companies looking to establish Caribbean headquarters. Diversifying the economy requires strategy, but the opportunities are real. The fifth and final lesson is perhaps the most important. National transformation requires belief, not abstract optimism, but shared conviction that change is possible and necessary. One of Singapore's greatest strengths was the collective commitment of its people to endure discomfort today for a better tomorrow. Jamaica has one of the most influential diasporas in the Western Hemisphere. Millions of Jamaicans abroad want to see their country thrive. But belief must be matched with discipline, unity, and long-term thinking. This brings us to the heart of the matter: Jamaica's extraordinary human potential. Despite its challenges, Jamaica continues to produce global icons in athletics, music, academia, and entrepreneurship. The country's cultural influence stretches far beyond its borders. There is a resilience and brilliance within Jamaican communities that cannot be denied. But national progress requires an environment where talent can flourish at home. Too many Jamaicans with high potential feel compelled to migrate in order to fulfill their ambitions. A successful Jamaica must be a place where the brightest minds stay not out of obligation, but because the opportunities are strong enough to keep them. The global relevance of Jamaica's story is profound. It demonstrates how early leadership choices shaped national outcomes for generations. It shows how political instability can undermine even the most ambitious development plans. And it illustrates how discipline, education, stability, and vision, when combined, can transform small, resource-poor nations into global powerhouses. Singapore's rise is not a miracle. It is the outcome of strategic decision-making. Jamaica's struggles are not inevitable. They're the consequences of choices that can be corrected. A stronger Jamaica would influence the entire Caribbean. It would strengthen regional trade, enhance tourism networks, and elevate the region's presence in global markets. The Caribbean needs more economic engines, more hubs of innovation, and more centers of financial power. Jamaica is positioned better than almost any other island to lead that transformation. Its ports, its population size, its culture, and its global influence give a unique advantage. But advantage alone is not enough. Action is required. So, what lies ahead for Jamaica? The next chapter of this nation's story depends on collective commitment to long-term change. Leaders must adopt development strategies that survive political cycles. Institutions must be strengthened to resist corruption. Schools must be empowered to produce the next generation of innovators and thinkers. Communities must work together to rebuild social trust. And Jamaicans, both at home and across the diaspora, must unite around a shared vision of national progress. The world needs a rising Jamaica, not just for the island's sake, but because small nations play essential roles in the global economy. A thriving Jamaica becomes a model for other developing countries. It becomes a symbol of what the Caribbean can accomplish when vision meets discipline. This video ends with a reminder: Jamaica's story is still being written. It is not too late to reclaim the path of potential. It is not too late to build the Jamaica that once stood shoulder to shoulder with Singapore. The future is open. The choice belongs to the people. If you found this narrative valuable, insightful, or inspiring, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps bring more powerful global deep dives to this channel. Leave a comment below and share your thoughts. What do you believe Jamaica needs most to unlock its future? Jamaica's story is a reminder that nations rise or fall not by luck, but by decisions, especially the early ones that shape institutions, education, stability, and long-term vision. Singapore didn't become a powerhouse by accident. It followed a disciplined blueprint that any country can learn from. And Jamaica, despite its challenges, still has the talent, culture, location, and global influence to write a new chapter if it embraces consistency, invests in its people, and unites around a shared national mission. That if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more deep, meaningful global insights.